here's Brody Brazil.
You know, with the sports landscape of 2024, let's be honest, you always hear from fans on social media and their honest opinions. They don't hold much back. They'll tell it straight to you how they think it is. And the same thing with media, right? In terms of clicks and views and subscribers, they want to say the most catchy thing, whatever's going to be important but relevant, but also kind of catch your eyes and ears. That's what they're going to do. So media doesn't hold back either. I don't think the players always are that upfront with their true feelings. They hide some things, they guard some things, and that's what makes this survey interesting, done by The Athletic. It's the MLB Player Poll 2024. They talked to more than 100 Major League Baseball players from the American and National League, and I don't know if Correa or Ohtani or Mookie Betts was one of them, so let's just say that these pictures are only here just to give you some imagery. I'm not suggesting that they were part of this, but 100 Major League Baseball players, that's a pretty wide cross-section, and they gave them anonymity in return to get some very honest answers about things going on in the certain states of professional baseball. So I'll begin by explaining what this survey is, and then we'll go kind of one by one what the results were. I also don't want to give you the explanations of the results. I'll save that for the piece in The Athletic, which I, of course, will link to down below. I want to make sure you check that out on The Athletic. But the MLB Players Survey, it was conducted by The Athletic during 2 months of time back during spring training 2024. They interviewed more than 100 big league players. I think that's enough to get some interesting and relevant results, pretty much evenly split between the American and National League. It's not a scientific poll because not every player answered every single question. And you have to understand, even when there's anonymity and you trust the reporter, you trust the media source, some things you're like, I just don't want to answer that one for whatever reason, or maybe you don't have an opinion. So not every player on every single topic, but all of them were granted anonymity for their honest responses. And again, to me, that's the biggest part of this. That's the best part of this, that everybody's going to freely tell you what they think. They're not going to be guarded with the typical media answers. First question, pretty obvious. First answer, I also think pretty obvious. Who's the best player in baseball? 102 players voted on that. 46% said Shohei Ohtani. I like the fact that Ronald Acuna Jr. is right in there too, with Mookie Betts, Aaron Judge, and Mike Trout, some of the others you would expect, but Acuna Jr. jumping right in with the top stars of baseball. You can also see players that received a vote: Bryce Harper, Gunnar Henderson, Jose Ramirez, Adley Rutschman, Corey Seager, and Zach Wheeler. So a wide spread of different players, but almost 50% of 102 big leaguers said, yeah, Shohei Ohtani. And that's obvious, right? He's not even pitching right now, but the way he's crushing a baseball with the highest of expectations on him in Los Angeles, and wait until he does get back to also pitching as well. Who is the most overrated player in baseball? And again, let me stop right here. You've already seen the answers, but like, this is the important part. The who's the best player is kind of a softball question to get you into what players really think, what people who do the actual job of playing Major League Baseball think about their coworkers and their peers. Jazz Chisholm Jr., 20.3% of only 59 votes. Now, you can see not a lot of players wanted to answer that question. Maybe 60%, 59% approximately of 100 and whatever. So not everybody even felt comfortable, but the ones that did, I mean, Jazz Chisholm Jr. at 20.3% is double that of Anthony Rendon. Now, we know about Rendon, his track record, his approach to things lately, maybe a different approach to baseball. But I mean, even to have Rendon there, and Carlos Correa I thought was interesting. We know about the injury history, the bouncing around between the Giants and Mets before landing with the Twins. And Tim Anderson has been in the middle of a lot of things. Jack Flaherty, Pete Alonso, Bellinger, Bregman, Ellie De La Cruz, most overrated. So I don't know if this is the most disliked. Let's also say that too, right? Because in my mind, that's kind of where it was going there for a second. Most overrated, overhyped player. That's what it's really all about. And you could see there was a lot of other players who got some shade thrown on them down there. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Bryce Harper. Take the shade, man. So interesting, right, to see who they picked. And I won't offer any more opinion, but I wanted you to hear who they think was the most overrated player. Going solely on vibes, who do you want most on your team? Another positively shaped question, Mookie Betts, 12.6%. And Shohei Ohtani right behind him, but look at that, Mookie with 95 total votes. So everybody, again, voting on the positive topic. That's pretty significant when you beat the next closest player by double the percentage. Acuna Jr. there, Bryce Harper. Wait, wasn't Bryce Harper just one of the most overrated players? You see what I mean? And this is good, right? This is a good cross-section of players and what they think and how they're saying or how they're seeing and saying things. Marcus Semien. I like seeing Marcus on the list, even if it's only 3.1%. So to me, there's a respect factor right here, right? The question is, who do you want most on your team? The reality is, who do you think is a great player that you respect, that you'd want to spend some time with, you'd want to spend 162 games with? I thought that's very fascinating. All right, Anthony Rendon, he's back. He's the centerpiece of this question, and he said a while back that, the baseball season is too long. Evaluate this statement. Anthony Rendon was right. The season is too long. Of 98 votes, again, so most of the players decided to answer this one, about 2/3 said no. It's like a 2-to-1 ratio that said no, it's not too long. But that means 31%, almost a third of the 100 baseball players think that the season is too long. Now, some fans think that. Some media think that. It's always been gauged that the players didn't really care about that, or they would say, no, it's not too long. They want the contracts. They want the at-bats. They want the business side of it. But there you go. Honestly and openly, well, anonymously, of course, too, players are telling you that by a 2-to-1 ratio, they don't want the season to be shorter, but that still does speak that a third of big leaguers questioned here would like a shorter season. Maybe not what you expected. Which team would you sign with if contracts and taxes, state taxes and rosters were not a factor? Let me try that again. Which team would you sign with if contracts, state taxes, and rosters were not a factor? I guess that means you're taking away your teammates, you're taking away the little funny money details, and you just want to go play for the idea of a team somewhere. Maybe this is about the stadium or the fan base or the history or tradition or legacy, or maybe it's the part of the country that you're from. Wow. Atlanta by a couple percentage points over Boston, over Los Angeles, Texas, the Yankees and Cubs, and then Padres. So let me stop at the Padres, and no disrespect to the Phillies, but I'll just stop there at the 5.8% mark. So you've got Atlanta in the South. You've got Boston, obviously, in a huge baseball market. You're playing at Fenway Park. You've got the Dodgers in LA. Great weather. I think a lot of people like the California vibes. The Texas Rangers just won the World Series, so there's probably something to that. Bruce Bochy's their manager. Maybe that's part of it too. They didn't say rosters. They didn't say coaches or managers. They said rosters. So take away the players. Maybe that's part of it too. The Yankees, I don't know if that's a tradition thing or a sentimental thing. The Chicago Cubs, another, major market, original status team, essentially of baseball. They've been in their stadium for more than 100 years. And then the Padres, another California team. They spend a lot. They try and win. They have packed houses. So you can kind of see what players are going for right there. If you take away all the baseball and business stuff, if all that was not a factor, where would you want to play? And so that's an interesting list right there. And you see a bunch of teams down there at the bottom. I'm actually kind of surprised that Tampa had just as many responses as Seattle and San Francisco and the Mets and Minnesota. I think people like playing there. It's not a bad ballpark. But even the Miami Marlins got 3.4% ahead of all those teams I just mentioned. So maybe that was part of the allure of the question. Take the baseball stuff away. Where would you want to go geographically play? What organizations have bad reputations among players? And here's another one where there is a tremendous leader in the clubhouse, so to speak. The Oakland A's, 40 players said that they have the worst reputation among players. And you can see how this gets broken down. The next closest was the White Sox, but it's not even half of the A's 40. The Angels right behind them, the Rockies right behind them. Then you get into the Mets, Pirates, Marlins, and there must be some interesting gripes with those 2, 3, 4, and 5 teams. But when you get into 10 players said the Rockies, well, they don't really go after free agents. And I don't know, they're not trying to make the splash in the NL West like everybody else is. The Angels, like they've tried, but they keep trying the wrong things. They let Ohtani kind of walk away for getting nothing in return. They haven't produced a new stadium. They've got questions of, well, is the owner going to keep the team? Is he going to sell the team? What are you going to do with Trout? It's just they're stuck in this middle ground and they can't get out of that rut. And then the Chicago White Sox, obviously this year, losing a bunch of games, asking for a brand new stadium. They want multiple $1 billion to build it. So there's a lot of things in flux. But all that brings me back to the Oakland A's and the departure from Oakland, the temporary season situation, the constant turnover of players, the lack of money spent on players and on rosters over the years, never had a $100 million contract, never had a $100 million season, like a team payroll. They're the only team in baseball to have that 100-100 combo. No $100 million players ever, no $100 million seasons ever. Both those things only belong to one team, the Oakland A's. And not to mention, and I will give this away because it was stated in the piece, there's a lot of regret about how Oakland and the region are being treated in this move. And it's one thing for fans to have their comments and the media to have their comments, but players, again, they're not really the first to spout off on any of these topics. But when they're asked, and 79 players responded, that's 80% basically of the about 100 that were questioned here. A lot of players responded, and man, 40 of 79 made it pretty clear that it's the Oakland A's right now. So it's not great times for the organization. But to have that confirmed by players, I think is significant from that group of people as much as any other group, including the fans or the media or any other pundit in sports broadcasting. Should Major League Baseball shut down mid-season so players can participate in the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles? Now, if you ask this question to hockey players of the 90 votes here, 100% would say yes. You need to shut down the season. We want to have our best players go represent their countries. Baseball's different, though. In terms of being an Olympic sport, yeah, it's there, but it's not necessarily the most popular event. And also the fact that it's in Los Angeles, that's kind of important, right? 2028. You want to have baseball in the United States as part of the Olympics, but it's pretty close here. 53%, a majority of players of the 90 votes said, no, let's not shut down the season. If you want to send some players, we'll keep our season going and have them go play in the Olympics. That's fine. Or don't let any players go play in the Olympics. Only 46% said yes. So this one, very close. And it's a bit confusing to me. I thought they would be more in unison on this one, either one way or the other. And usually in the way of allowing players the opportunity to represent your country, wear that name across your chest. But that's unfortunate, right? The timing of like the winter hockey season and the typical winter Olympics, you got to do something with your season. You got to stop your season. It's interesting how basketball doesn't have that problem. Basketball being a winter sport, but in the Summer Olympics, right? So they don't have to worry about in-season stuff. That's kind of a luxury. Baseball and hockey, they have it during their main professional sports season. Have analytics helped your career, hurt your career, or made no difference to your career? We talk about, I don't want to hear launch angles and spin rate and all this stuff is too much. And, let's just throw the ball and see the ball hit the ball, right? Well, 76% of 92 votes said it's helped. That's a large majority who say it's made a difference. Only 10% said no difference. That's the next closest response. 8% said both helped and hurt, and 3% said hurt. So actually, if you add up the both helped and hurt and just the hurt, you actually have just as much as no difference, which was about 10%. Basically, it's like this. Almost 80 said it helps. 20% said didn't matter, or it was helping, but it was also hurting me. Interesting breakdown. I think the 76% right there speaks volumes. And that brings me to thinking about, hey, if I shy away from talking about analytics and going too deep into the numbers and the math of baseball, and I feel like a crazy person. Well, in reality, I'm not, because these are the people playing the game, and they're here to tell you that analytics provided to them have helped them in their careers to the tune of 76%. So I think I'll stay a little bit more on the analytics track. Have you ever seen or heard of a player being put on the injured list when they weren't injured enough to merit it? Ooh, faking time on the IL. 64% said yes. Wow. Now, seen or heard, right? Could be a little bit of hearsay. I would have been more interested if the question was, have you ever experienced that firsthand? Somebody else firsthand. So sometimes it could be urban legend or rumor, but the bottom line is a majority of players will tell you of 84 votes that, yeah, they've seen a player go on the IL just so a team can make another roster move that benefits them. That's interesting, right? You're not supposed to do that. That's a really bad look. That is very frowned upon, but also not terribly surprising, if I'm being honest. But there's the truth, right? If I'm here to come to a conclusion on that, I think that's the truth. That teams are doing this and players are now kind of calling that out a little bit. Was the Dodgers' offseason spending good for the game? Oh, man. That's a deep question. 86 votes, almost everybody responding. 91.8% said yes. Only about 4 plus 3, add some change, 8.5%, 9%, whatever. Less than 10% said no or I don't know. You know why they are in agreement here? Because bigger contracts, even for the star players, means bigger contracts for all the other players. I mean, these are players who have to compete against the $1 billion or whatever the Dodgers just spent this past offseason. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are the majority of players who have to go up against that. And they're here to tell you that it was good for the game. I realize a lot of fans are going to say, well, it's not good for the game. Media are going to say it's not good for the game. And Ohtani deferring money and cheating the system and maybe cheating taxes. Well, okay, yeah, I get it. And I don't disagree. But I'm here to tell you the players that you watch and sometimes idolize and look up to or respect or are fascinated with, they're telling you in large part that what the Dodgers did was good for baseball. Are you in favor of or opposed to MLB adopting the salary cap and floor system used in other major sports leagues? Just like the National Hockey League. They just announced, and this is crazy, I think it's the salary cap is $88 million and the floor is $65 million. So you got to be between $65 and $88 million every year. That's a hard floor and a hard cap. Players here are pretty straightforward in being opposed to it. 71.6% of 74 votes. No salary cap, please. You know why? It limits what they can do. It makes the teams get more creative. It does not benefit players to put any kind of cap on it. But I found it interesting that 14% were smart enough to give the answer of floor, no cap. See, I think more of that 71% opposed, if they thought it out for a second, would say floor, no cap. You know why? Having a floor means that you can't have bottom-feeding teams that sit on the luxury tax and collect the money and don't actually use the money. It forces every team to at least meet a certain threshold. And in this day and age, let's be honest, I can name at least this many teams on my hand that don't usually meet that threshold. So I'm not saying players got it wrong here. I'm saying they jumped at the first answer because it was most obvious. I think more of them should have said floor, no cap. Oh, by the way, no cap. No, like no cap. Never mind. 13.5%, I can't believe it, are in favor of a salary cap in Major League Baseball. So anyway, the honesty, the takes, the opinions, I'm here for it. I love this type of stuff. I know The Athletic had been doing one of these player polls for hockey players. I always found that fascinating, talking about different characters and situations and circumstances and the big picture topics of the league. I thought that was a tremendous look at Major League Baseball and some of the controversial stuff, the way fans view some things, the way media views some things, but basically, most importantly, how players openly and honestly and anonymously feel about things. Hey, you made it here to the end of this video. You know I really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll help me in this video and this channel. And if you've never seen me before, that's actually great. I'm happy you found me, but do me a quick favor. Go down there right now, hit that subscribe button so I can definitely get to see you back here next time.